Right away, the first query, I got it on Twitter from a gentleman called Rajveer Panesar, and he wants to know if it is prudent to invest in the Franklin India Tech Fund following the run-up in IT stocks. He says he wants to switch into this Franklin Tech Fund from the Franklin India Blue Chip Fund where he has been invested from 2006. So is it a wise move is what he wants to know. Hemant?
Well, I think as far as the potential of IT fund is concerned, I strongly believe that despite the fact that these IT funds have been doing very well over the last few years, I think they will continue to do very well. But considering that, he's looking to invest in a sector fund, and I think there are a few things that he needs to consider. The first thing is he needs to understand that being a sector fund, the investment universe of these funds is very narrow. So although there is a potential of actually outperforming the broader market, there can also be periods where either the returns can be very low or it can be very, very volatile. So he must have the risk appetite to tackle that. So I think it's very, very important for anyone who's looking to invest in a sector fund. The second thing, it's very important to understand that that sector fund, when you invest, it has to be a significant amount. So for it to make some difference to your overall portfolio. Now, many a time what we see is the investor will invest maybe 1 or 2%. Now, even if the sector does well, it actually does not make any difference to the portfolio. So it has to be large enough. Third thing is that if there is an existing portfolio, one should look at what is the overall exposure to the sector where one is looking to invest. For example, if it is found that already the sector exposure is 5 to 7% or even more, it may not be actually a great idea to invest in the sector. So I think there are 2-3 factors that he should consider. If after looking at this he believes that he should be investing in an IT fund, then I don't think the Franklin IT fund is a good option. There are a couple of other funds that have been actually doing well in an IT fund. Then I don't think the Franklin IT fund is a good option. There are a couple of other funds that have been actually doing very well. One is ICICI Pru IT fund, which has been doing very well. And the second is Birla Sun Life Digital India Fund. So these are two funds. If at all he wants to look at IT fund, he should be looking at one of these.
Okay, fair enough. So Rajveer, I hope that answers your question. And in fact, taking this theme forward of this whole, IT wave, there are many investors who are keen to cash in. So Srivat R has written to us from Bangalore, and he says that he missed subscribing to the Mirai Fang Plus ETF. So he wants to know if he can do so now. Pankaj?
Yes, see, it is now reopened. So definitely if he wants to invest, he can invest in this. But again, he has to understand that when you are investing in any domestic or international fund, there are sectoral fund, there are diversified fund. So when we talk about FNG Plus, it is basically a fund which track FNG Plus index where there are only 10 stocks. And these stocks are from the technology or technology driven companies. So that is why one thing that is, it has a very concentrated portfolio, and second thing, it is sector specific. So if you want to invest, means you said that you missed it earlier, so definitely means it's reopened now, you can invest now, but you have to see your overall portfolio, your risk appetite, and then make choice, because otherwise you have more choices. We have around 50 funds in India which are basically international funds, so you can invest in a diversified international fund if you want a diversified portfolio.
Okay, so basically the view that is coming through is that, anybody who's looking for a specific exposure into any one sector, one is that, do it at your own risk after understanding the pitfalls that sectoral funds has. And, Hemant raised a very interesting point, and which all investors should know, is that first look at the diversified equity funds that you're already holding and see whether or not, what is the exposure to the sector that you have in mind. So in this case, if it is IT, so if you the investor knows that, IT is a good opportunity, then certainly the fund managers of the diversified equity funds know it too, and they might be also loading up on equity. So it shouldn't happen that you are, overexposed to that sector. So look at that risk very, very carefully before you look at investing in a sectoral fund. Okay. Now, the next question comes in from Priya Khaitan from New Delhi. She says that she wants to start a mutual fund portfolio for her father, who is set to retire in the next 2 years. So what should be the strategy? Which category of debt funds will suit this purpose? So one is, of course, that she has figured out that because he's closer to retirement, that perhaps, debt is the way to go. Now she wants to know what should be the strategy, what kind of portfolio should she make for her father. So Hemant, let me toss this to you. What would you recommend that Priya do?
Well, Smera, considering the fact that Priya is looking to invest her father's money for an important stage of his life, while she has already decided that maybe some part of it can go into debt fund, my belief always is that before deciding what kind of fund should be there are certain factors that she needs to really consider while designing the portfolio. While it's important to focus on safety of capital, especially for the post-retirement stage, it's equally important to understand that if the real rate of return from the overall portfolio is negative, then I think it can cause a serious problem, because then what will happen is, due to inflation over a period of time, the value of the money will continue to go down. So the portfolio has to be designed in a manner that it should have the potential to deliver positive real rate of return. That's very important. The second is, one factor that she needs to also consider is whether he will require to generate regular income from the portfolio. While all of us know that the funds allow you to get dividend, it's actually not tax efficient, especially if the applicable tax rate is 20% or 30%. So that's where I think she can consider a strategy like systematic withdrawal plan, where you get fixed amount despite the fact that you're invested in the market linked products. So that should be considered. Third is that if she is looking at investing some part of the portfolio in debt funds, she needs to really look at two factors. What is the emerging interest rate scenario? We know that right now the interest rates are very, very low, and I don't really see any possibility of interest rate cut from here. At some stage when the interest rates start going up, she needs to really consider which are the category of debt funds which will get impacted. For example, she should not be investing in longer duration fund or credit risk fund. Like her to avoid, maybe she can look at a short-term fund or maybe corporate bond fund. So these are three factors that she needs to look at. So my belief is that she should really focus on hybrid funds. The hybrid funds which invest in a mix of equity, arbitrage and debt. And there are two categories which really stand out here. One is the equity saving. The second is the balance advantage, which is also called the dynamic asset allocation fund. Now these funds have some part in equity, some part in debt and arbitrage, in a manner that the total of equity and arbitrage is 65%. So the tax benefits applicable are of equity funds. So I believe that this can definitely be a better option for her. Another important thing that she needs to consider, because the retirement is 2 years away from now, this is also a time for her to start looking at rebalancing the existing portfolio. For example, if her father already has a mutual fund portfolio and if the equity exposure is higher, this is the time in a gradual manner maybe she can bring it down to a level which will match the risk appetite of his father post-retirement. So I think these are few factors that she needs to look at while designing the portfolio for her father.
Okay, fair enough. So Priya, I hope you have noted down all of those points that Hemant has listed out, all very, very valid in considering a retirement kitty. The next query comes in from one of our regular viewers and somebody who sends us a lot of questions. Major General Rajesh Kumar has said that he wants to know rather if it is the right time to book profits in the equity mutual fund schemes and what methodology should he adopt. So the background he gives is that he has invested in the HDFC index fund, the Sensex plan, and UTI index fund, Nifty plan last year. Right, so he's in the money. In the HDFC plan, he's making 25%. In the UTI plan, he's making 14%. So now he wants to know, should he book partial profits and reinvest it into debt funds? Pankaj?
See, because he has invested in index funds, and one thing, it is a good idea that he can book some profit out of this. Though the profit is not very huge, 25% and 14%, but depending on that how much amount he has invested. So if he wants to book the profit and invest in debt, so he can invest in some short term funds. That can be a good choice. But again, because still my personal opinion, I'm bullish on the market. So if somebody has a long investment horizon, so it is better to stay invested for long term so that you can multiply your wealth. If you keep booking your profit time to time, so it means only your principal amount will keep growing, but that growth, what you have earned, that will not grow further. So if you want to multiply your wealth, your time horizon is longer, it is always better that you stay invested. And until unless means you are expecting something good correction in the market. But at this moment, when we are expecting good rally again in the market, so if your time horizon is longer, you stay invested. If you have some goals which are nearing now, in that case, you can book your profit.
Okay, so Major General Kumar, I hope that answer works for you. We're going to slip into a very quick break. There are more queries to answer and some very interesting ones, so you'll want to stay tuned in.
क्यों कहीं और जाने को फिरते हैं, मन कहता आज घर पे ही रहते हैं।
सेरा, कुछ पल घर के नाम। आटा खत्म, चक्की चले।
अब से सिर्फ 4 कदम आगे वाली चक्की चलेगी।
आशीर्वाद आटा
यानी 4 स्टेप एडवांटेज। बेहतरीन गेहूं, 3 बार सफाई, पारंपरिक चक्की विधि और बिना आटे को छुए पैकिंग, श्रिंक रैपिंग के साथ। आशीर्वाद आटा, 4 कदम आगे।
Fittings make your furniture work beautifully.
Hi, welcome back to MF Corner. Our 2 experts are with us, Hemant Rustagi of Wiseinvest and Pankaj Matpal of Optima Money Managers, and we're answering viewers' queries today. So the next query that comes in is from Gauri Kamath from Mumbai. She says that she has always held about 50% of her portfolio in large cap funds. Now she wants to know, should she consider shifting all or part of this money into the flexi cap funds? And the reasoning that she has given is that flexi caps are also mostly large cap, and the fund manager has the option to add some multi-bagger mid caps as well. So what should she do? Should she make the move to flexi cap? So Gauri, first things first, that even a large cap fund has a mandate only to invest a minimum of 65% in large cap stocks. The rest of it, the fund manager can employ at his discretion. But for your particular query, let me toss it to Pankaj.
See, because she has mentioned that 50% she has invested in large cap, it means balance 50% she has invested in some mid cap, small cap, something like this. So in this case, if you already have mid cap, small cap in your portfolio, and which suits your profile and to your financial goals, in that case you can continue with your large cap, because large cap should also be in your portfolio. But if you are investing, if you are thinking that you invest in one fund which takes care of all the market caps, in that case flexi cap is a good choice, because here money can be invested across the market capitalization, and fund manager has a choice to invest in large cap, mid cap, small cap based on the market conditions. So here very simple, because question is not complete. She said 50% she invested in large cap. So if the balance is invested in mid cap, small cap, my suggestion is stay invested.
Okay. So that's the advice. No need to move to multi-cap, to flexi-cap, Gauri, since you already have a very large cap exposure. Sriram Navathe has written from Pune, and he wants to know, why have dividend yield funds never become popular? All 5 funds in the category are good performers, so is it a good idea to invest here? Well, Sriram, first things first, if there are only 5 funds there might be a reason for that. But let me toss it to Hemant to find out what is the reason that this is such a limited category and which has never seen the interest of its peers.
Well, Samara, before we discuss why these funds have not become popular, let's understand what these funds are. as the name suggests, these funds invest in the dividend yielding companies. SEBI definition requires these funds to invest at least 65% of the money in the companies that give regular dividend. But if you were to really analyze these funds which are already there, they invest roughly around 70 to 80% of the money in funds that have a dividend yield higher than the benchmark. So really the focus is on funds that on the stocks that give regular dividend and higher dividend. Now what are these companies? These are companies which have a great flow of money plowed back into the business. They're doing very well. The earnings are good. So there are certain phases in the market where when there is an earning pressure on the broader market, that these dividend yielding stocks of the companies do better. So overall, if you were to see, they have done reasonably well. But let's not forget one thing, that for most of the time, it's the growth stock that do better. And the reason why they're not popular is because most investors who invest in equity want their money to grow at a certain pace. So clearly, the focus is on growth. The second is, earlier, many investors who were investing in these stocks were the one who required regular income. The fact that the companies where they invest are getting regular dividend, the fund manager also gives regular dividend. Now, the fact that dividend is taxable in the hands of investor, which means that if your applicable tax rate is higher, it's not really attractive. And at the same time, you are somewhere compromising on the growth. So clearly, that's why you see significant majority of the investors looking at a fund where the growth stocks are there, and there are not too many people who are investing in the dividend yield funds.
Okay, so Sriram, I hope you have got your answer as to why this category hasn't picked up. From Lucknow, Ayan Malik has written in, and he's a young investor, a new investor. He is ready to start with an monthly investment of 4,000, and already I guess he has done some research into investment options, and he wants to know, should his first investment be an index fund or a large cap fund? What would you recommend? So this active passive debate rages in the mind of a young investor. Pankaj, what would be the recommendation for him?
Yeah, considering that he's a young investor, investing first time, and at this point of time when market has already appreciated to large extent, so my suggestion that one is that definitely index fund will be a good choice. He can invest for long term in index fund. But apart from that, my advice that he can also consider investing in balanced advantage fund, or we call it dynamic asset allocation fund, because in this fund money is invested in debt and equity, and allocation is decided by the fund manager. Means it may be higher in equity or higher in debt depending on the situation. So because we know that in last 1 year the way market has appreciated, so now if you are starting something, you have to be a little cautious. So considering that, index fund is one choice, and apart from that, as I said, balanced advantage fund can also be considered.
All right, and Ayan, all we can say is all the very best in your investment journey. Okay, SK Hussain has written from Chennai. He is 46 years old and he has sent us his mutual fund portfolio. So the oldest scheme that he has in his portfolio is the Franklin India Equity Fund, where he has a monthly SIP of 10,000 rupees still ongoing, and this is a fund that has done phenomenally well. Axis Blue Chip, he has been invested for 2 years, where he is investing 5,000 rupees each. Edelweiss Balanced Advantage, where he invested last year, he's investing 5,000. And the Quant Small Cap Fund, which he just started 6 months ago, where he's investing 5,000, probably seeing the run up in that fund. A small fund but mega returns. So Hemant, how would you analyze his portfolio? Seems to me that he's picked all the winners.
Oh yes, Sumana, definitely I agree with you. I think if I look at the selection of funds, the fund selection has been pretty good. I think more importantly, the mix is quite good. There is one large and mid cap fund, there is one large cap fund, there is a small cap fund, there is a balanced advantage fund. So I think overall the portfolio is very well. But I think he should look at two things from here on if he really wants the best out of his portfolio. One, he should have a clearly defined time horizon. It's all right to say that I'm investing for a long term, but I think you need to have a definite time horizon. That helps you a lot in terms of choosing the right fund. For example, if his time horizon is 10 to 15 years, then maybe the balanced advantage fund is not the right category to be in. So I think it's very, very important to look at. Second thing is, I would like him to align his investment to a certain long-term goal. Now, what happens there is that it helps you tackle the volatility. You don't get jitters whenever you see, volatility in the market. And the fact that you're investing on a regular basis through SIP, and the fact that you know you have a clearly defined time horizon, it helps you stay invested and continue your process uninterruptedly. So I think if he does these two things, he can kind of realign his portfolio and then make sure that he gets the best out of it over a longer period.
Okay, and we have just one final query, and this has just come in to me on Twitter right now, a few minutes back. Dilip Rao, who goes by the Twitter handle Squanderer, wants to know, can I invest 20% of my holdings into small cap funds at this point in time, and if so, which ones? Pankaj, ordinarily 20% into small cap seems too large an allocation. Would you agree, and what are the funds to recommend?
I agree with you that in small cap your allocation should be limited to some 10%, 15%, so it is a little high. Second thing, your time horizon should be really longer, and at this point of time, again, because we have seen that rally in the market, so if you are investing now, invest in staggered manner, do not invest in lump sum. So either STP, SIP, that should be a choice. Now scheme, I'll suggest that in small cap you can consider Axis small cap, or Axis small cap fund is a good choice, or SBI small cap fund.
Okay, so Mr. Rao, I hope you were listening in. Thanks very much for your query. Hemant, Pankaj, thanks to both of you for answering all our viewers' queries and for joining us this afternoon. With that, we have come to the end of MF Corner, but just a note of caution to our viewers that the views and opinions expressed by our experts are their own, not necessarily that of CNBC TV 18. And while you may consider their recommendations, I would also urge all of you to do your own due diligence before you actually make that investment. Thanks for watching, and do stay tuned in. Closing bell comes up next.